Gender expectations in the workplace are said to be changing. Gone are the days where a woman in marketing was just suddenly asked to make tea for the boss, other than maybe a runner who is a gentleman in the workplace, or maybe even a gentleman in IT asked to lift the heavy boxes and leave his station on the computer. However, even though they're changing, there's so many that still remain, especially for women in leadership and in many professional spaces. Women leaders continue to face a lot of double standards. Some of these double standards have to do with how they need to navigate and change who they are to really suit what people are seen to be a good leader. Perhaps when one is assertive, they're seen to be labeled as aggressive. When they show empathy, they seem to be a soft or a walkover. And striking the right balance can be a constant challenge. And we're looking into that in today's Becoming feature right here on The Move. Joining us on the line is the head of Umbrella Fund Solution Product, Darshana Kooverjee. Thank you so much, Darshana, for your time. Good morning.
Morning, and thanks for having me.
Well, gender expectations exist in our society up to this day. And so it's obviously not that much of a surprise that they still exist in the workplace as well. Women usually bear the bigger brunt of gender expectations and conformity, especially if they're trying to get into leadership or already in leadership roles, right?
Yes, certainly. But I definitely think more and more you're seeing that gap narrow. And now you're seeing many women in leadership roles doing really, really well. So as we're moving forward, I think we are, getting past some of those initial boundaries that existed, and leveraging off our capabilities to see how we can, take business forward.
Yeah. I once saw a TikTok of a lady who's in corporate saying, I'd like to thank the woman when I started corporate who told me that I should wear a fake wedding ring, because how you're treated in the workplace because of your marital status really changes how you navigate the work environment. And that is a huge stereotype still that, women have to deal with in the workplace. Also, personality traits are some of the biggest challenges as well. Why do you think these are still things that we're navigating even in 2025?
Yeah, I think there's certain underlying dynamics and certain basic differences between men and women that will never go away, right? But more and more going forward, you're seeing women focus on their core capabilities and what they do well, and by focusing on that, they're kind of moving the discussion away from these other secondary elements that might have been key points in the past. So as people focus on their core capabilities, they're using that to leverage and to create value for those organizations. And this is why you're seeing women at the forefront these days, being successful in those leadership roles.
Darshana, what do you think have been the things that women have done well to go beyond those gender stereotypes?
So I think women naturally have this level of empathy, and they're able to kind of match that with the amount of integrity required in running a business. So, I mean, I always say, as a leader, you should really try to take a bottom-up approach, listen carefully, and again, I think that's one of the traits women do well. They're able to sit and really listen and take in the thoughts and views from the individuals on the ground. But take that and put that together with the bigger picture thinking and utilizing all of that information to see how that value can be added.
Yeah, in scenarios where there seems to be entrenched gender norms, what do you think is the best way to navigate that? Because at times, you have a woman who is assertive in a male-dominated environment and could be seen as bullish. You get someone who's probably a little bit more muted and more sensitive and say, this is weakness. How do you navigate those types of gender stereotypes?
Certainly so. And my view is that exists for women as much as it actually exists for men in today's day. And so it does come down to focusing on what you're there for, the core job that you're employed to do, and focusing on that, and making sure that the discussion at hand at any point in time is based on that, rather than bringing in these additional elements that might skew any discussion.
But how do you think that one does navigate, especially how do you think a woman does navigate some of these stereotypes, especially when they see that they exist, right? Because I feel like a lot of women go into the workplace and they have to sort of adjust themselves to be something that they're not, and mostly even put on a mask or an act just so they can, constantly try and navigate some of those stereotypes.
Yeah, and I think that, you're right, but there's a space for each and every one of us as individuals, right? And it's really taking a step back and saying, yes, I do have a certain personality, but what are my strengths out of that? And how do I utilize those strengths to best equip myself in the workplace in that particular role? So one might view it as differences and stereotypes, but actually we should be viewing it as an opportunity to leverage off, how that can be matched against a strength that I might have.
And that's the difficulty, right? Navigating what people can see as a personal trait, because people can pick on things that are probably your sensibilities and put you in that pigeonhole. But your personality is more dynamic than one element of you. How do you maximize that, even beyond the gender conversation? Say, I've got so many things that I know how to do and I have the ability to lead in a particular way. I need to channel these into a particular direction. It sounds like a big task because you have to really be a person who knows themselves and your style of leadership.
Yes, exactly that. And I was going to make that exact point. The first most important thing to do is to understand yourself. What are my strengths and weaknesses? What are my personality traits? And only once you have a full view of that spectrum can you then step back and say, actually, which of those would set me back and which of these would take me forward? And those that can take me forward, let me see how I can utilize those to the best of my ability to take myself forward as a leader, but also to create that value for the business.
It would be great to actually get some good examples, because a lot of the time when we have these conversations, we can have such an overall view, conversation, just like you said, right? Use your skills, use some of your natural inclinations and use those to your abilities. There are very specific things that women struggle to navigate when they say, you know what, I am a bit of a softie and that's how I am, but I'm very intelligent and I did work hard for this leadership role. Now, how am I going to use that softness to my advantage? I'm always been a very assertive person. How do I use that assertiveness to my advantage? So just keep that in mind. We're going to go to a break, Darshana. And when we come back, I would really love you to give us some examples on how exactly we can use some of our innate emotional intelligence, some of our softness, harshness, assertiveness to our advantage within the leadership roles, but also to the benefit of those that we lead as well. We're speaking to Darshana Kooverjee, head of Umbrella Fund Solution Product, about how exactly to bring in effective leadership when trying to also navigate some of those gender stereotypes within the workplace. Stay with us.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126 and contribute to the conversation. Meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
Darshana Kooverjee is joining us on the line. In fact, she's streaming live with us on our live streams. Check them out on our Facebook page at Channel Africa 1 on YouTube, but also on our Facebook page, Channel Africa. We speak about how do you go beyond that gender role as a woman or even a man, because it impacts many of us. How do you step outside of that comfort zone of how people even define you according to your gender and create a distinct way of leadership? Darshana, Palesa wanted to get some examples of leveraging your own personal strength. How do you do that? Give us an example.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, if you're one that's, more inclined towards a softer approach to speaking to people, utilize those to have the discussions with individuals on the ground, understand where, their pain points lie, and understand what, how you can use that information to firstly create a happier, employee base, but secondly, how you can use some of that information to turn things around in your organization. If you're one that has, a little bit more of an aggressive personality, then maybe put yourself in a position where you're sitting with other leaders that have to make really hard decisions. I mean, you need to also, as a leader, be quite decisive in your decision-making skills. But, with that little bit of aggression, and of course, respectfully so, put yourself in that situation where you can actually have those, like I said, difficult discussions to and won't necessarily be walked over by other individuals in the room.
As much as we are in 2025 and we think we live in a progressive society, we still have many entrenched stereotypes from the past that remain. What if you are a woman and you are trying your best in an executive situation at work, and you still have men clubbing together, men still doing the whole golfing thing and making decisions when you're not in the room? What do you think is the best way to navigate that in a way that is going to not make you look like gender is your biggest concern, but that you also want to be part of the major decision-making processes?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because I think it's in some spaces that does exist, to your point.
Yeah.
Look, I always believe that you still need to be true to yourself. So I don't necessarily think you need to change yourself to make sure that you fit into, someone else's world. But maybe find things where, you can resonate with another group of people, whatever that might be. I mean, sports is one thing. There might be other things that, one can discuss and kind of, connect on. And that takes time. That's not something that you can just do in one meeting. It takes time to get to know people, understand who they are, their personalities, their family structure, what they enjoy and so forth, and connect on something else. I don't think the right thing is always to adapt yourself to fit into someone else's mold.
As people, we do have to be more than one thing. Even if there are, characteristics that are, innate to you, you also have to try and, bring in other skills and learn other skills, especially because you're going to be navigating a lot of different people. So overall, you might not have that problem of gender stereotypes, but there might be one or two people here and there. And, sometimes that can be dangerous because one or two people can spread into an entire organization. How do you keep that in check and make sure that when you're learning the people who you are under you, and also those that are your peers in the environment, so that you know how to navigate those spaces and bring in those different personality traits when needed?
Yeah, naturally, as a leader, you do need to have an element of wanting to be around a lot of people. So you need to find a space where you gain energy from speaking to people, learning about people, understanding them, having empathy towards them in certain instances. And by that, we are naturally in a space where you kind of forced to culminate all of that information together and kind of understand the dynamics at play within the broader environment, given all of these different personalities and so forth. So I don't necessarily think it's something that should be done deliberately, but it's almost as a natural inclination of the role. It's a requirement in a sense. You cannot be a leader by yourself. You cannot take anything forward by yourself. You need to take, your people with you on that journey. So the question is how you do that, right? And you do that by navigating all of the different individuals that make the grouping that's following you.
Absolutely. Well, Darshana, we have to leave it there. Where can we find out more about the Umbrella Fund Solution product or about yourself as well?
Yes, certainly. So you can visit our liberty.co.za page, where we have a vast array of information around the broader group's products, and that includes our individual solutions as well as our corporate solutions, which is obviously includes the Umbrella Fund solutions as well. So our website has the most information, and then it also has points of contact if anyone wants to contact us directly through that.
Well, thank you so much. It has been a very helpful conversation. Thank you so much, Darshana.
Thank you for having me.
That's Darshana Kooverjee, who is the head of Umbrella Fund Solution Product. Let's carry that conversation over to our social media at Channel Africa 1 on X. When it comes to leadership, which double standard do you think harms women the most? Go there and give us your thoughts there.
#OnTheMove and connect with us.